All right, so again, just want to welcome you to today's session, the IRBNet to Kuali-IRB, Navigating the Transition, Phase 1 is what I'm calling this one. So because today's session is an introduction of sorts to the new IRB system platform, with more details to come as, of course, the IRB office shares those training guides, hopefully in December, and then just additional information as it comes along. Once again, I thought it would be better served to break up the overall training into 3 phases. So we have phase 1, navigating the transition before the Kuali-IRB is implemented. Let's see, phase 2, I'm going to title this one Upon Kuali-IRB Implementation, hopefully sometime in January 2026, of course, and then lastly, phase 3, post Kuali-IRB implementation. So announcements for those dates will be forthcoming as soon as the IRB office provides that. All right, so before we take a look at the learning objectives for today's session, I'd like to first share this required slide, as many of you are probably familiar with, that specifies UMD's non-discrimination policy and procedures in association with the university's programs, activities, and the use of facilities. And here is the other required slide indicated in Justice for All. All right, so upon completion of this training, as UME faculty and staff, you will be able to achieve the following learning objectives. First, you will understand in a nutshell what is Kuali-IRB. Next, you will learn key dates and actionable requirements for you as PIs of some of your studies. And then lastly, knowing where to access IRB support and those important resources, because again, this information is steadily being made available. All right. So to achieve these learning objectives, let's dive into some of the key topics that will be discussed. First and foremost, we'll start with a recap of the role of the IRB as it pertains to human subjects protection, the 4 levels of IRB review as well. And then also to clarify the distinction between what constitutes as research and a study. Next, we'll develop an understanding of Kuali Build, which is the overarching platform that some areas of UMD currently utilize, and then the incorporation of Kuali-IRB. Next, we will take a review of the timeline for the transition of IRBNet to Kuali-IRB. Then we'll share some particular action items, again, for you as PIs to take before entering anything into the Kuali-IRB platform. We'll also provide some workaround options to be taken until the full Kuali-IRB online platform is made available again in January 2026. And lastly, I'll share some notable FAQs and provide ongoing support and resources that you can definitely reference pre and post the Kuali-IRB transition. All right, so let's begin with a recap of the role of IRB. So the Institutional Review Board is primarily important with all aspects of research pertaining to what you all looking to study, and then what you all are looking to share either within your own departments or even externally. So to gain a full understanding of the importance of an IRB approval, let's review the definition as indicated by the federal government. So the Institutional Review Board is a governing body that performs ethical review and proposed research to ensure the protection of the rights and welfare of human participants, as well as it also approves the initiation of and conducts periodic reviews of research involving human participants. So while you as extension educators do not necessarily conduct the clinical research for publications in a journal, there are 2 caveats that could potentially dictate otherwise. So anytime you collect information from participants that is considered as generalizable knowledge, you must obtain IRB approval. So again, when we refer to the term generalizable knowledge or information, it is that detail or drawn conclusions that are intended to be shared with others that are beyond the scope of your immediate work group or department, perhaps through a publication, or as Michelle had indicated, attended some conferences where you will conduct presentations. And all of this definitely contributes to scientific theories or principles being proven, disproven, or as we do here in Extension, determine those impacts. So for example, if you collect information from a program evaluation and you post those results to the study of a website that's accessible to others that are, again, beyond your immediate investigative team, or you're looking to provide it, again, to another department, another university, or to provide some of those details and information from the program evaluation to a grant funder. That's another option. Your study must definitely obtain an IRB approval. All right, so now let's take a look at what are human subjects research, or what is classified as human subjects research, and why it's so important. So before understanding the role, requirements, and then the overall process for IRB approval, we must first review why there's a need for protecting human subjects in research. So first and foremost, with the signing of the National Research Act by President Richard Nixon in 1974, the National Commissions for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research was established as a direct result of the Tuskegee syphilis study. And then just briefly, a review of what the study entailed. The Tuskegee syphilis study was deemed ethically unjustified, as we had 600 African-American men, of which 399 had syphilis and 201 did not have syphilis, were studied from the years of 1932 to 1972. So over this 40-year examination period, the U.S. Public Health Services and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that group did not obtain those men's informed consent. So the department merely told the men that they were just being treated for what was then called bad blood. And that phrase was a local term used to describe such ailments as anemia, fatigue, and syphilis as well. So it was later believed that those 600 men were part of the unethical study, were in fact being injected with syphilis, and that was pretty much dispelled. Just some of them did have syphilis prior to the study. So while the notion was later dispelled, those men were not informed about penicillin being made available to basically treat syphilis as early as the 1940s. So by the end of this 40-year study, of those 399 men that had syphilis, we had 28 that actually died from that particular disease. And then 100 of those that died with related complications. So other things that did occur as a result of having syphilis. Also, 40 of those gentlemen wives were affected by syphilis, as well as those wives giving birth to children having congenital syphilis. So you can definitely see the impact of not informing participants about the full disclosure of what your study entails can definitely have a negative impact. So not only was the informed consent not obtained, but other people that weren't even a part of the actual study, again, were negatively impacted. So this is why it is extremely important to share all pertinent information about a study, its potential and known risk, and obtain consent from anyone that's participating, no matter what part of this study they may actually play a role in. All right, so I do have a reminder here, again, why it is important to obtain IRB approval prior to conducting research, a needs assessment, or in our case, program evaluations. So not doing so could result in not having your information publicized or published in articles or any particular journal. So, that's the goal with all research, right? To get your information out there for the masses. Termination of research privileges at the University of Maryland, College Park. So, you definitely don't want to lose those privileges. And then lastly, you run the risk of having your particular research suspended at the institution. And then, of course, if you are partnering with others beyond the University of Maryland, all activities must cease until further notification. All right, so now let's take a look at research versus a study. So here I wanted just to provide a snapshot. And again, this is pretty much an overview, but I know sometimes we will utilize research in place of study and vice versa. So again, I just want to provide a quick overview of the differences between research proposals and a study plan. So first with research, it is an overarching systematic investigation designed to develop or again, contribute information towards generalizable knowledge. However, with a study, this is what you actually submit to the IRB for review. So it is a structured project or experiment conducted within a broader research framework. So again, this is the specific study, what you're looking to collect data for, and then you provide that to the IRB for their review and approval. So the purpose of research proposals is to aim to answer, again, those broad questions, and you're testing those hypotheses and you're exploring theories. However, with a particular study, again, you're just looking to collect data from a specific population or sample using methods for addressing those research questions that you're looking to explore in your overarching research. And so with the scope of a research proposal that does include multiple studies, phases, or methodologies within a single research agenda. So for instance, a researcher exploring how social media affects mental health of youth across multiple cultures is the overarching theme of what it is you're looking to explore. And then you want to provide maybe some specification with multiple studies within that particular research to either prove or disprove any theories that you have. However, with a study, the scope is again, you submit to the IRB for their review and approval. And in the case that we're pretty much familiar with, it's details surrounding the participant recruitment and enrollment. So again, those numbers you provide are very, very important. Just any details around consent forms and data collection procedures. So an example here, I did choose 4-H here. A survey of 100 4-Hers in Maryland. You want to collect information about their particular social media use. So again, I just hope this does provide a little more context, because I know we can interchange those words of research and study, but they actually do have different meanings. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the IRB review paths. So technically, there are 4 types of review paths that the IRB will take in terms of determining if your study is classified as human research participants or human subjects in research, as well as what level of study that you are participating in. It will determine what type of review you will need to have that approved. So first and foremost, we do have the human subject research determination. And this is the form that we currently use today, or I definitely encourage you to use today if you're not certain that your study classifies as human subjects research. And so if you just complete a few questions, I believe today that form is about a 2-page form. Again, very brief questions that the IRB office asks to determine if your study is in fact considered human subjects research. So with that being said, once the IRB office takes that review, and they'll determine, okay, no, this does not classify as human subjects research. And so as long as you continue with your research under those guidelines that you've provided to the IRB office, you can continue and don't need further review or approval. However, if the IRB office does determine that your study is in fact considered human subjects research, a non-exempt is typically given, and so therefore your study must go through IRB approval. All right, so the three levels that we are definitely accustomed to seeing include the exempt review, expedited review, and full board review. And I know on one of the application forms, it indicates, for you to make the selection in terms of what type of review you think this is. And I don't know why, and the IRB office has actually confirmed that they don't know why that is even listed there, because, again, they make that determination based upon the criteria you provide, which level of review is needed, not necessarily us as researchers. So the first level, or the initial level, is the exempt review. And it typically includes any anonymous surveys, interviews, observations, or pre-established data reviews. And so for the most part, in extension, this is the type of review, or level of review rather, that the IRB office will, pretty much extend their search for, and then give you approval, just again, based upon the criteria that they need to make that decision. However, if it is determined that your particular study does require more review, then you will go to the next level review, which is expedited review. And this classification is determined by one of 9 federally defined categories. Unfortunately, I don't have access or even know what that looks like. So that's something for the next review level of IRB office to do. So I know sometimes you or extension educators in general may submit an IRB review, study, proposal, what have you, and you'll have one person to say, oh, this looks great, da 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 da. However, they then determine that your study does require the next level of review, and then they submit it to another IRB officer. And so then that person starts asking for questions. And so sometimes I get feedback, well, this person didn't say anything. Why is this person asking for more? Well, it's because that initial review, the exempt review, is now deemed that it has to go through the expedited review. Now, I don't typically see a lot of expedited reviews from us. However, just want to make that notification for you, just in case, you start to get multiple IRB officers asking you different questions. All right. And so with the expedited review, it's either approved and you can conduct your research, or you may then be required to submit it or have it submitted through a full board review. And there's only one instance since I've been here in the past 2.5 years that did require a full board review. And that's simply because the participants were inmates. And so they are a part of a protected group. And of course, they need, more protections, and, just simply asking them basic questions that does, need a bit more protection. So there were some parameters with that particular search and research. But I just wanted to, again, just provide you with an overview of research versus the IRB review pass, just going forward. Now, I don't know what this will necessarily look like in our Kuali-IRB, excuse me. But again, if we have this understanding, then whatever changes come along, we can pretty much adapt to that. All right, and then one other thing I did want to bring up here is just a quick review of what minimal risk is defined as. And here it's the probability and magnitude of harm or discomfort anticipated in the research are not greater than those ordinarily encountered in daily life or during the routine physical or psychological examination or test. And again, I don't have the criteria what they use to make that determination, but that is the guideline they use to determine if your study does in fact, or if your study is in fact greater or presents greater than minimal risk. All right, let's see, do we have any questions? All right, moving on. All right, now let's look at what is Kuali-IRB, and particularly just taking an overview look of what the Kuali-IRB system will entail. So first and foremost, with Kuali Build, This is a no programming code platform used for creating digital forms and automating workflow processes. So I've been kind of doing a little bit of research of my own. I have seen that other universities have been using this. So I think UND is looking just to streamline these processes. And what I pretty much heard from some of the IRB officials with UMD in particular, they're just looking for a way to hopefully make things a little bit more streamlined for us as researchers and just make the processes automated so that they can also connect with other systems in terms of research. So first and foremost, this serves as a replacement for paper-based and PDF forms with online automated versions of documents. Yes, we do definitely currently use a lot of documents that we upload, but from my understanding, this new Kuali Build overarching platform is going to really heavily rely on that, maybe on the back end as well as on the front end. And then also is to be utilized for easy integration, as I mentioned, with other systems for sharing data and minimizing any manual entry, either again on the front end or the back end. So this system is currently used by the INTERP, which is UMD's Disclosure Office's integrated external relationship portal, and the Office of Research Administration, or OR, as we know, for submitting and approving gift forms and other documents that are needed to determine any incentives that studies may utilize in terms of participation. So another version of this whole Kuali overarching piece is what they call Kuali Research. And that is currently being used by ORA for the review and approval of research proposals, awards, and sub-submissions. All right, so let's take a quick overview of what Kuali-IRB is. So it will, again, be a component of the overarching Kuali Build platform. So IRBNet, what we currently utilize, has been UMD's research submission platform for the past 13 years, since 2012. So, it's pretty much time for, an update, if you will. So that's kind of the premise behind this transition. So the new platform promises to offer more flexibility for users. So during this particular transitional period, the IRB office has created a Kuali-IRB protocol drafting tool to be used as the tentative template so that you as researchers can begin to draft your applications for submission in Kuali-IRB once the submission platform becomes available on January the 5th. And that's the date, the go live date, if you will. But again, that's subject to change. And if I do get any type of notification that the date has changed, I'll definitely follow up and let you know. I'll provide an overview of this drafting tool a little later in today's session, but just want to kind of introduce that here. And then one other thing I wanted to note is that there will be no additional reviews for any active IRB projects. So if your project is currently active and is in IRBNet, you will not have to go through another review when you have it transitioned to Kuali-IRB. All right, are there any questions? All right. So now let's take a look at the anticipated transition timeline. So first we have a document that the IRB office has created, and this one's called the Kuali-IRB Matrix. So just to ensure that, switching back and forth, I don't lose a page or lose connection rather to the page. I just took a screenshot of page 1 of 2, but I'll definitely provide you the link so that you can review it, or print it out if you will. And so this is basically a timeline captured here just in, a quick handy document to let you know when we're looking to utilize IRBNet, when is the blackout period, and then when we look to transition to Kuali-IRB. So one thing I do want to note here is, though the absolute deadline for submissions in IRBNet is on noon, December 20th. The IRB office is strongly encouraging you to make any initial submissions, any changes to your study or your protocol that you submitted, or anything that you need to enter to get a head start on this transition. They're strongly encouraging everyone to submit that to them by December 1st. And of course, the rationale behind that is simply because it's going to be so many people or so many things that they're going to have to do and so many projects that they're going to have to oversee, just to ensure that you don't get lost in the weeds, so to speak. They're really encouraging everyone to make that update by December the 1st. But the absolute deadline is December 20th at noon. So as you see here, the noted blackout period will be December 21st through January 4th, 2026. And during this, I believe it's a 2-week time frame. So during this time frame, the IRB office will not be receiving any IRB projects, reviews. Everything will just basically go black as they work behind the scenes to make the transition. And then beginning on January 5th, 2026, all the way through August the 31st of 2026, this is when we're going to be utilizing Kuali-IRB. Now, this particular time frame is broken out because during this time, you can still access IRBNet, but only for projects that are, again, active. So you won't be submitting anything new into IRBNet during this particular time frame of January the 5th through August 31st, 2026. So then starting on September the 1st of 2026, full-on IRB access only for Kuali-IRB. So IRBNet will be decommissioned and you cannot refer back to it for even your active protocols and projects. So let's see. For the second piece, one thing that they've indicated here, and I'm not sure, again, I haven't seen too many projects that's needed the continual review. So these are some of the studies that have ongoing participation in collecting data and that sort of thing beyond your standard time frame. So sometimes the IRB office, depending again on the nature of your study, will require you to check in and make sure that everything is still aligned with the criteria that you initially submitted, and that you're, again, looking to continue that review and collect information. So for this particular type of review, you will be able to utilize the IRBNet through January the 4th. But again, the encouragement is definitely to make sure you take care of that by the deadline, because again, as we know with technology, it's great when it works, right? So we just don't want, any of your projects or studies getting lost in the transition. All right. So again, I will share this with you in the link that I will send you in the follow-up notification email. But I just wanted to call this out to you, and I'll also share with you where you can find it on UMD's site, just in case you want to go there, look at other information that is forthcoming, because the IRB office has indicated that they'll put everything, as it comes off hot off the press on that particular page. All right, another document I wanted to share that the IRB office has presented is the Kuali-IRB decision tree. So this will help you kind of decide what you need to do, when you need to do it, and who do you need to submit it to in terms of IRBNet versus Kuali-IRB. And so again, I won't go through this, interjectedly, but I just want to share with you that this document is here. And this particular page 1 of 2 is an indication of submission of a new or initial IRB project. So it gives you, again, a visualization of the timelines for when you can submit to IRBNet versus Kuali-IRB. And that's a continuation of that particular decision tree. And then just a couple of notes, again, just re-emphasizing the blackout period, because they definitely want to give us as much heads up as possible so that, again, we're not running the risk of losing any studies or projects during the transition. And then this is page 2, which is an indication of your projects or studies that have already been approved, how you can still access them in IRBNet, when you'll be able to access them in IRBNet, and when you have to manually transition them by. And that's the other piece I wanted to share. They haven't given much detail, but I am looking every day for more information to be forthcoming about how exactly we are to transition everything from IRBNet into Kuali-IRB in the event that it doesn't transfer over, but more details to come around that. All right, and this again is a continuation of any activity for active IRBNet projects. All right, do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, this is Steph. I was wondering.
All right, so here are some things you are encouraged to do now. So first and foremost, again, it is important to finalize any pending IRBNet projects today. Please don't wait until December if possible. But again, you do have the deadline of December 20th, but definitely encouraging you to do everything you can do now. So for instance, for revisions and amendments, you want to go ahead and send the IRB office an updated initial application part 2 form that indicates any changes, again, strongly encouraged before December 20th. So when updating application part 2, you want to reflect the current research procedures, and then you want to preemptively do so so that it significantly aids in that, again, transition to Kuali-IRB and ensures that all your studies documentation is consistent and up to date. Again, doing this on the front end will help tremendously because, again, keep in mind, this is not just extension that's going through this transition, is all of UMD. So keeping that in mind. As far as continuing reviews, you want to ensure that all dates for your study are indicated so that they'll know, okay, what's happening when, and that they're pretty much up to date so that you're not trying to make those amendments or adjustments, again, during the actual transition. So this is a time frame where you can kind of look even during the blackout period of December 21st through January the 4th to make those updates as well. All right. So the other thing to note is you want to close any projects that you're no longer recruiting for or enrolling participants for or collecting data for. So to simply close any projects that you have open, you just want to email the IRB office, and I'll provide their email address if you don't have it, but it is irb@umd.edu. And in that email, you definitely want to include the IRBNet ID number. So it makes it easier for them to find your project and ensuring they're closing the correct one. All right, something else that we can do now is submit any initial IRB projects, again, before noon on December 20th. Again, the IRB office is strongly encouraging you do this before December 1st, but the absolute deadline will be noon on the 20th of December. So the last thing that they've indicated is to go ahead and get familiar with what they call the Kuali-IRB protocol drafting tool in preparation for submitting any of the IRB projects that will be new into Kuali after January the 5th. And so this project drafting tool, again, my understanding, will become the template for applications. And so they're looking to combine applications part 1 and part 2 into one document, which I don't know, that makes sense. But I'll show you and I'll share with you the drafting tool. So primarily with that, they want you to start getting, first of all, accustomed to this new layout and documents, but then to go ahead and start preparing and putting information in that document. So on January the 5th, if you do have a project that you want to hit the ground running with on January the 5th, that you already got everything you need completed and you can just submit it into the new system. And I'll again provide an overview of this drafting tool just a little bit. All right, any questions here? All right, so what are some workarounds? Because I actually asked Joe about this, so this wasn't provided until I asked. So I'm kind of laughing on the inside because I know I probably have gotten on their last nerve with all the questions I've had around this. But this is what Joe Smith had provided to me in terms of a workaround on either before the rollout or after. So I kind of broken it down into, again, two segments. So before January the 5th, again, want to just strongly encourage you to submit any new IRB submissions to IRBNet before noon on December 20th. Also, utilizing the Kuali-IRB protocol drafting tool template, and I will provide that information or the link to that document to you. One thing I want to note, because at first I completely missed it, when you go, it's a Google Doc right now, so when you go to the shared Google file, you can't begin editing or typing directly into that particular document. You have to copy it and then save it and then utilize your save version. So one thing I do want to share with this particular protocol drafting tool, it is just that a drafting tool. You're not going to submit this document to Kuali-IRB. You're simply going to draft everything you need, write it up. And so once the system rolls out on January the 5th, you can simply copy and paste and put everything into the system. So again, let me make that clear, because I'm not sure if I did that before. This particular protocol drafting tool is a template of sorts and is not to be uploaded into Kuali-IRB. It's simply a drafting tool so that when the system becomes readily available on January the 5th, you can simply copy and paste it and then just put it into the system and submit. All right. And then lastly, this is anticipated, those Kuali-IRB guides that will help with the understanding, navigation, functionality, all of those good things of Kuali-IRB. Hopefully, fingers crossed, will be made available December. If not, I don't know. I'm just waiting with bated breath for that information so I can at least kind of look through it and be prepared to answer your questions and help you all with this transition and navigating that new system. So definitely ask for your patience there, because as soon as I get it, I'll make those notifications out to all of you and me to notify you all that these guides are available and then try to begin helping you with that. All right, so after January the 5th, again, this is per the IRB Office Director, Joe Smith. What you want to do is kind of to Shauna's question earlier, you want to perhaps wait. They said here late January 2026 to really start utilizing Kuali-IRB, but I would even go as far as saying, if possible, to wait till February so that they can work out the kinks. So I'm again encouraged to submit anything new. They've indicated late January. I'm suggesting wait till February. And then also they humbly ask that you have a little patience with them, because again, this is a new system. It's got us talk to and connect with other systems. So fingers crossed that they are able to work all of this out during the blackout period. All right, any questions? All right, so what are some valuable FAQs for the transition? What I have captured, and these are actually on the transition to Kuali-IRB webpage underneath the Division of Research's website. But I did capture these 10 questions to kind of present here, but definitely check back on that page because I'm sure they'll be adding more questions as they become, more issues or problems for them to kind of fix going along. So again, when is the go live date? The go live date will be January the 5th. I said 2025, it's actually 2026. So January 5th, 2026 era there. But again, that's the tentative rollout date. I would not be surprised if this date gets pushed back a week. But again, right now, that is the tentative go live date, 2026, January the 5th. All right, will I have to move my project from IRBNet to Kuali-IRB? They're saying yes and no. So right now on the website, they're saying yes, but there's kind of stipulations around that. So once I get more clarification of what that actually looks like, I'll let you know. But right now, I don't even have details around that. So they're saying yes, but I've been told no as well. So my apologies for that. What does transitioning a project to Kuali-IRB entail? So a couple of things. Again, it's just preparation, right? You want to ensure that you've completed your application forms. So any updates, amendments, what have you, go ahead and get everything that you can possibly do within your power with your current studies or any new submissions, get that done and submitted into IRBNet before noon on December 20th. And then be sure to update any supporting documents to include the continuing review forms. If you have changes in your enrollment numbers, changes in your dates, anyone added to or being removed from your projects, just be sure that this is what you can do on the front end. So kind of going back to the question before, while this is what they're saying that you'll need to do in terms of manually transitioning your projects over to our Kuali-IRB. This is just really what you all are being asked to do in IRBNet prior to. So that is the extent of it right now. But again, all of this is subject to change. So just want to give you that caveat, that heads up. All right, so number 4, will my project receive another IRB review if it is transitioned from IRBNet to Kuali-IRB? So again, these are the ones that are currently active. So no, as I've indicated before, you do not, or your project will not have to go through another review. What's there is there, it will just transition over and you will continue as business as usual. All right, next, what can I do to help the transition to Kuali-IRB? So as I've been stating, again, you want to close out any inactive IRB projects today, now, but definitely before this transition of January the 5th. You definitely want to do that. Definitely before the blackout period as well. And then also just want to submit any amendments via application part 2. All right, so when is the last day I can submit an IRBNet? Again, 12 noon on December 20th, 2025. They are encouraging you to please submit by December 1st because they're anticipating an influx of just activity, but the absolute last day is noon, December 20th. What if I don't transition my application or project to Kuali-IRB before September 1st of 2026? So basically, they're going to consider it as a closure. So they're going to consider it inactive and simply close it. So if you have something ongoing, you don't want that to happen. So again, they're calling this a transition where we as the researchers are manually transitioning. All that they're asking you to do is making sure that your information is up to date in IRBNet. Right now, that's all they're asking. All right, when is the IRB application blackout date for new projects? And again, it's that 2-week time frame of December 21st through January 4th of 2026. All right, is there an easier way to view this information? So as I've mentioned, yes, you can review the Kuali-IRB transition matrix that I've provided. And again, I'll provide the link to the website or the webpage on the Division of Research's website. All right, and then lastly, where do I go for resources and questions? So first and foremost, again, definitely revisit, review, look at for the first time, if you will, the transition to Kuali-IRB webpage. I will provide that link to you, but that's where you get the most real-time information. Honestly, I believe I will have to check that page to get information as such, because the IRB office has indicated they will provide us as liaisons information as it rolls out, but they're also putting it on the webpage at the same time. So hopefully we'll get a heads up that something's coming. But I encourage you, if you have any questions, you can definitely take a look at that full page, and they may have additional details that I haven't been able to speak to just yet in this phase 1 rollout. Also, you can email the IRB office at irb@umd.edu. And they do have phone numbers, but you can also just reach out to me, and whatever questions that you have, I can definitely pose to the IRB office. All right, any questions? I'll pause here. Any questions? All right, so the last topic I wanted to cover again is support and resources. So for ongoing IRB support, the IRB office has indicated that they're going to send out the IRB news listserv document through the listserv rather. So they're going to be sending everything out, I believe, to everyone, but I do believe there's certain pieces or criteria they'll send to us as liaisons first. But just want to give you a heads up that the IRB office has indicated they will be sending out, updates and what have you through this IRB news listserv. They're going to also have office hours established with us as liaisons. I don't know when that is, but as soon as I learn that, whatever information I get from those calls, I'll definitely follow up with you. And then again, this is just the IRB's office's contact information, their website, their phone number, and their leader, Joe Smith. All right. And here are some resources. So this is the link to the transition to Kuali-IRB webpage. And again, it's underneath the UMD's Division of Research's website. I will provide this again in the follow-up notification for those of you that will be watching this, post the live session. If you're not able to find it, just please reach out to me. I'll get that link to you as well. And then those 3 documents that I've shared, the Kuali-IRB transition matrix, which kind of lays out the transitional timeline of everything before the transition, during the blackout period, and then post implementation, as well as the Kuali-IRB protocol drafting tool, which in essence is a template combining what is currently in IRBNet's initial applications part 1 and 2, looking to combine that. Again, please do not submit this IRB protocol drafting tool to Kuali-IRB. This is just a drafting tool where you will just begin working on it now. And so when January the 5th hits, you can just copy and paste and put everything into the actual Kuali-IRB platform. And then lastly, the decision tree for IRB submissions to Kuali-IRB. So again, this helps, give you a visual screenshot, if you will, of what you can do based upon yes and no questions that they've designed for this particular decision tree. All right, so as we wrap up today's session, here are a few key takeaways for you to reference with this particular rollout of phase 1 of the IRBNet to Kuali-IRB transition. So as a brief recap, first, we've covered a brief overview of the differences between the overarching research proposal and the submission of a study to the IRB for review and approval. There was an introduction to Kuali-IRB with a promise from me to provide you with updates for access and usage during phases 2 and 3. Again, I'll provide those times of when I look to deliver that piece of training or updates for training forthcoming once they're made available for me. Also, a timeline for transitioning from IRBNet to Kuali-IRB was provided with the indication of the final date that initial IRB projects, revisions, amendments, continuing reviews, and closures will be received in IRBNet, and then to the actual blackout period of, again, December 21st through January 4th, 2026, where the IRB office will not receive any IRB submissions. So that's none in IRBNet, none in Kuali-IRB. And that was noted. There was a call to action for things that you as PIs can do and should do now. And there was a reminder to submit any initial IRB projects by noon on December 20th into IRBNet so that they can be captured and be considered active going into the rollout of Kuali-IRB. Then we presented different workarounds that were described in preparation for new IRB submissions in Kuali-IRB, again, beginning on January the 5th. And then lastly, we provided some general FAQs from the transition to Kuali-IRB webpage, as well as provided some IRB support information, and then those available resources that you can use before, during, and post this transition. And so lastly, I do have a reminder that the final item I would like to leave you with is during the blackout period of December 21st through January the 4th. Again, I do encourage you to take focus on your studies, first of all, research design. So making sure that, that's still plausible, that still is applicable for the work that you're doing. And then to go ahead and using that protocol drafting tool where you can draft your application for new quality IRB submissions. And so you definitely want to do that. And then last but not least, I did have a friendly reminder from one of our leaders for you to go ahead and continue working on your CVs, because there is a submission deadline to Dee Allen by January 16th. So a call to action for you to definitely continue to work on that through the blackout period if you're not able to submit to IRB. And then just ensuring that, again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And again, whatever I will relate to you as soon as possible. But right now, fingers crossed, hoping that everything, pretty much works out well with this transition, and that this new platform is definitely more intuitive and can help expedite the process of IRB approvals. All right, are there any questions? If not, we'll go ahead and conclude today's session. But again, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dacia.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, Neith or Lacey, you have any questions? Lacey, you have any questions?